It's kind of why I don't care about being a journalist, because it's like I get a lot more upside and none of the downsides.
At any point, do you lose interest in the album, or are you always locked in like hype?
No, I lost interest like years ago.
Okay, there we go. Okay, Rather Live, Find Shit, Backdoor, Toxic to me is crazy.
I hated that.
Really,
that's like the worst part of the album for me.
Really,
Yeah.
you have interesting choices as a Kodak as the narrator of your album and featuring on Playboi Carti's album. Then you're mad at Drake for being a deadbeat dad.
Like, the only reason why we're even talking about Kendrick being like hypocritical on Carti's album is because all of us listened to the album. Well, I've said, well, actually, I need to be vindicated. I hope someone clips this.
Welcome to the SoundCentric podcast. I am your host, Adam Dash, and I am joined by my guy, Philip. He is the creator of Volksgeist. We're talking 497,000 subscribers. Get him to 500K. Because YouTube, what do they ship you? A giant, like, plaque?
They don't ship you anything. They just...
Is it like when artists go, like, platinum, they have to buy the plaque? Like, do you have to buy something from YouTube?
No, well, I get one in a million. For 500, they give you nothing.
Okay, 500 nothing. We'll get him something. But thank you for tuning in. This guy, if I asked you, or someone came up to you and said one word, like, how would you describe what you do? Because before we talked, I was like, maybe journalist. You were like, no. Anti that phrasing.
I'm not a journalist.
How would you describe it?
I would say documentary.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
But I think there should be an adjective before that as well. I would maybe say like entertaining documentary. I don't know.
You know, like the same way that there's like a negative connotation to people being like, you're a SoundCloud rapper at the time, is a YouTube essay, is that like the same equivalent to being called that?
Yeah, well, I think that at this point we've got like YouTube essays that are just people reading out plot summaries from TV shows for 7 hours.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a problem. If you're trying to make something that really has a story structure and could offer some sort of inspiration, motivation for people, like that's a bit different. But most of the YouTube essay game is really just 7-hour Nickelodeon recaps at this point. So maybe there's a bit of a stigma around that at this point. Yeah.
And I know you're anti the label journalist, but in a way you are an investigative journalist because you are compiling all this information that I know I didn't know about A$AP Rocky going into this video, and like you are learning from it. So like why anti-journalist phrasing? And can you take a step back and be like, I am an investigative journalist in a way?
Well, this is a bit of a personal story, but truly, journalism doesn't quite mean what it used to mean anymore in general. And I think especially music journalism has suffered the same way every other form of journalism has. But at the same time, I think that they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot. And I've interacted with a lot of music journalists because obviously I've gotten a pretty big profile. And most of them have been nothing but horrible, honestly. But I think I understand why. Because journalism has always had prestige to it. And it still can, but not so much anymore because no one makes any money doing it and it's dying. Yeah. But the way I understand it is that most music journalists will just tell me to my face that I don't do anything with journalistic value. And I think
which is crazy because you make documentaries, which like I just don't see how they can not respect that.
Well, I think that a lot of them are very academic minded. Okay. And they're really looking for like the utmost integrity and everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't make things up. I do a good job researching, but I think a lot of them just have critiques for what I do. And my goal a lot of the time is to just make something that will make people have a feeling, a reaction, some sort of like, I want to tell a story that you're like, wow, that was a great story. Yeah. And I focus on that heavy. And I've just found that a lot of the journalists can be very like, oh, well, he didn't do this. He didn't do that. And I'm like, but 1 million people watched it. And I got 10,000 comments that said, what a great video. I was inspired. This made me cry, whatever, right?
Well, to the Rocky video, you talk about Space Ghost Perp. I didn't know what that was. So like it leads me to want to dig into him because you brought up a side Rocky and you talked about both sides of the argument of like why he might have been right and why Rocky might have been right, whatever. And it's like, oh, I did take away a piece of knowledge that I didn't have beforehand.
I think that's my goal.
Yeah.
But the way that a lot of journalists will come at me, they'll be like, well, you left out in 2012 when he did this. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
well, that's not, and they can have, a lot of people will come to me and be like, this video could have been so much deeper. And I'm like, well, no one would have watched it.
Yeah.
So I think
It's also an hour-long video.
I
They
know.
want like the
Yeah.
Last Dance. They want a 10-episode Netflix.
There's a lot of people. Well, like when you see an old guy and he's like talking about World War II and he knows every boat that went.
Yeah.
And it's like those are people. People are like that about music.
Yeah.
And I kind of am too, but I filter through it to make something that a million people will watch.
Yeah.
And I try to really think in like the parameters of how do I get as many people as I possibly can to enjoy this, without falsifying stuff and making it ridiculous.
Yeah.
But a lot of the journalists they have the standards, the journalistic integrity and everything. And I think that it comes a lot from them being usually college educated, which I'm not.
Yeah.
But I've always taken that personally, honestly, because a lot of the people are like, oh, like you don't have this, you don't do that. And I'm like, well, I didn't ever have the opportunity to do those things.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best to create something that makes an impact.
Yeah. I mean,
and
it's just jealousy.
I mean,
at that point,
in a way, I think it is.
Because I wrote for my school newspaper in high school, so I took like a journalism class in high school, and then in college I took like a sports media class. So I have which is why I was complaining before to you about how there's some Twitter accounts that can tweet anything.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a face to their page, and they are now the leading source of news. The same way CNN is reporting about the government, but I know what writer's tweeting because they put an author to it. So I understand that point of view sometimes, but I don't think. I mean, if you got something blatantly wrong, I would guess, you tell me, you would admit to it and probably put something out like, this was incorrect.
Yeah, but that never happens.
Yeah,
honestly,
you
it
do
doesn't
your
happen.
research.
I very, very rarely, especially not in the last couple of years, has anyone ever been like, yo, this was wrong. And like, that doesn't, I mean, like, there was this time that we did a video on Kendrick and we had this little baby picture of him and everyone was like, that's Tupac. And it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I was getting these tweets like, that's Tupac. You don't know what babies look like. I'm
Yeah.
like, that actually is Kendrick. Like, you guys should go double check. But yeah, I mean, that doesn't happen so much. But I think I would love to be accepted by music journalism. If I ever got some opportunity to write some review for some magazine, I would love to. Like, that's cool. But I think a lot of them see the really high numbers of engagement that I'll get. And they're like, well, he only checked off 8 of the 10 check boxes for a good review. And so it sucks. And he doesn't deserve those views. And like, we should be getting those views. Because like, honestly, to be honest, like I'm probably getting way more engagement than the average like blog or magazine is at this point, even legacy ones.
Yeah.
And they probably have like higher ad rates. They have staff and shit. But it's like, they're not getting that many page views.
And I'm a fan of written journalism. Like there is a difference between reading a review versus like watching a Fantana or a Sean C like doing a review. So I do enjoy it. Like I read sports articles all the time. So I hate that isn't a thing as much in hip hop. And then like it's weaponized where it's like Peppa Pig got a better rating than For Your Eyes Only. And it's always like comparing the writers. But at the end of the day, it's like it's someone's opinion. So I think people get so mad at like this person didn't agree. And it's like talking about music here. Like that's the fun part. We all disagree about it.
I do love written journalism too. Like I think Pitchfork reviews can be so much more. They're just the language is nicer.
Yeah,
because it's in writing, but it's like
also
you don't
gives
speak
you
out loud like that.
Yeah,
So,
you don't. But also gives you more time to like reflect when you're writing versus when you're speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you're speaking, you watch it back and you're like, "Fuck, I said that! Like I can't believe I said that." And it's like an embarrassing feeling.
Yeah.
So we were talking about before. You're like, "This is one of my first things doing off script," and like that is that scary part of like on the spot talking about a review. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Fantano probably scripts his stuff out. I don't know how he does it.
I think he does.
But I would hate for that part of journalism to go. But I understand why. But I don't know. I feel like your videos hold journalistic integrity.
Oh, I definitely try. They don't come off as particularly journalistic, I think. But it's because it has to be simpler and more direct.
Yeah.
It has to be. I mean, I can't do beautiful, deep, flowery language for a scripted video. It doesn't
Come
sound
off,
right.
yeah.
So
It also make people be like, "Fuck you."
well, that's that too. I mean, I try. It's for the people. Like,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't listen to a 50-minute Pitchfork article. Like, why? I'm not gonna try and force myself to match up to that. But I have like, there's a bunch of people who write for the Fader that just have me blocked on Twitter, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even tweet.
Yeah.
And I think that there's an anger about just like, look, they get paid like $100 to write an article, and we're making like a lot more money than that doing videos that people like and watch and are entertained by and even go back to. Like, I ran into a guy in a bar last night and he was like, "Yo, I watch your Frank Ocean video like every year." And I'm like,
That's sick.
I was like, that's amazing. Like you're out here, just some random person at a bar, and like, it's cool. So.
And he's rewatching it like it's one of his favorite documentaries. I
Exactly.
think when I used to watch your videos, I didn't look at them as they were documentaries until when I was watching them this week, and I'm like, oh, they're like the same thing you'd watch on Netflix.
I
It just happens to be on. It just happens to be on YouTube.
That's what I want it to feel like. And I want to make stuff that goes so well with the source material that people
Yeah.
are like, this is a good thing to watch if you're into this,
Yeah.
and so that's the main goal. And I mean, it's kind of why I don't care about being a journalist, because it's like I get a lot more upside and none of the downside.
Yeah,
So
I guess it could like pigeonhole you in a way.
yeah, I think so. And eventually I'd love to take the skill of craft and detail that I've learned and
Yeah.
bring that to other industries. Because I think the biggest thing I've learned is just like attention to detail in a lot of ways. So, but that's kind of beyond what the question was. I'm only on YouTube to uplift stuff that's good for the most part. Occasionally you have to pay the bills. You make a video about P. Diddy, but like I enjoy talking about stuff that I like, and then other people like it as well. And I love the. I've started to really lean into, like, I started noticing it maybe with my Andre 3000 video, where people will be like talking about how they realized things about their own lives by me talking about stuff that the artists have gone through, and like that means a lot. And I'm not thinking I'm necessarily making art, but I would say that there's
You are. I mean,
value
you're an
in it
artist.
for-
You're a film writer.
I try.
Like you're writing,
I
you're
try.
video editing. Like there is art to it.
Definitely.
Like even in the Rocky video, there was this clip of ASAP talking about like the homophobia in hip hop and how he grew as a person, where he was like, "Oh, I love fashion. Like it's not gay to just like dress like in cool clothing. It's high fashion." And I'm like, "Oh, that like, I didn't know about him that he had that point of view that early in his career at a time where that was around, and it gave me a bigger like appreciation for him as a person."
Yeah, because that's like 2012 probably, and a lot of people have forgotten that he was on that type of
Vibe, like,
that vibe, that perspective, like a long time ago.
There's a video. So I took a hip hop history class in college. It was cool that Ohio State offered that. And my teacher showed us a video. It was a documentary, and in it, like Mos Def, it's in the early 2000s, and it's extremely homophobic. And it's really interesting to see that now, because like our society's so, like, for the most part, past homophobia, but like hip hop went slowly with that. So it was cool to see the Rocky like dichotomy of that versus how Mos Def was talking about it in the early 2000s.
I think a lot of people probably wouldn't have, like, people don't remember that with A$AP Rocky because it's just like 15 years ago, basically. And but he was, he was like on that early, and he did a lot of stuff early.
So you just dropped a video with your fiance doing a more reactionary content to Playboi Carti. So first off, did you come into the Carti album as like a big Carti fan? Like, what would you describe your?
Yeah. I've been listening to Carti since I was like 18, 17. Like since he came out.
Yeah.
I was 17 when he came out with the mixtape, and then I used to go to his concerts. I was so hyped the day Whole Lotta Red came out. That was the best day of my life.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of comments that were like, because a lot of people felt, I think because of Kai Cenat's coverage of the album, that all the influencers talking about it are just making shit up.
Yeah.
And that they don't know Carti. But I'm like, no, I saw Carti at a venue with like maybe 400 or 500 capacity.
Yeah.
Like, and he didn't show up for 5 hours, but I saw him there.
Oh my God, that would piss me off so much. At that stage of his career, to have that confidence at a 500-person room to show up late.
I think it was right after Die Lit. It was a one-off. It wasn't a tour or anything.
Oh, okay.
So it was a one-off, but he
was Lauryn Hilling it.
Yeah, he
early
just
in
did
his
not
career.
give a shit. He did 2 songs. He threw the microphone away and left.
Oh my God.
But I was still a fan after that. So I was definitely hyped up to answer.
I saw, this is a quick story. I saw Travis Scott in Vegas at a club, and we get there at 11, and we're in standing room. We did not buy a table. And because our friend's sister got us in, and he doesn't go on until 2 a.m. My feet are killing me. I have a bad view now because the kids get a table and they're standing up. He does 2 songs and starts DJing. He starts playing like Tonight. And I got so angry. I'm like, fuck, like I just waited so long just to hear like Antidote and then him DJ. I was pissed.
What year was this?
This was 2023. It was recent.
Oh shit, he was in Vegas doing clubs in 2020. I guess he just kind of hangs out at places.
Yeah. Also, like Future was on stage, but he didn't perform. And I was like, no.
Yeah. It's like, I'll go on stage, but unless you wire another 20K, I'm
Yeah,
not picking up the mic.
It was a cool experience, but I was so pissed in the moment.
I mean, that's every concert. That's every rap concert I've ever been to in my life.
I saw Tommy Richmond yesterday in Philly, and gained such a newfound respect. I was a fan before, amazing performer, but I loved that he could have done the classic industry plan move, which he is not one, but like to go on a huge tour, and he was doing 1,000-person rooms, and he rocked it. I left very impressed by.
Was it his show only, or
His show
Okay.
opened by My Name Isn't J-Mac, also fire. But he live band, I left very impressed. But I guess the artists I like tend to be people who are prompt. I don't know. No, I don't think I've experienced a show where they come out late.
I've seen it. I've seen it a couple times. I think the best one I ever saw was Freddie Gibbs. He showed up and did it immediately on time. That was the day after he got beat up by Benny the Butcher. So he was wearing a ski mask and sunglasses, but he rapped really well, and he did like every lyric of every song that came out, and it was like really good. So
I saw him at a festival. He was great. I'm trying to think of my favorite. My favorite's probably Anderson .Paak. He's insane.
I don't go to concerts ever since COVID. Not gonna lie. I mean, I saw every SoundCloud rapper live.
Yeah.
But then after COVID, I've probably been to like 5 or 6 shows.
Yeah. I think they give me that resurgence of like why I want to do work in music and be around music. So last night was like a re-energizing for me to be like, all right, let's lock in and like keep going for it. But to the Carti thing, so the rollout is so long, but you're a big fan. At any point, do you lose interest in the album, or are you always locked in like hype?
No, I lost interest like years ago.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Because the whole lot of Red was not that good, like long-term listening. I never went back to it much, maybe like 2 songs. So that was, but I knew that even from the first listen. It's like, this is unlistenably experimental in some ways. And there are songs off Whole Lotta Red where like, I Am Music, like a bunch of the songs on that outstreamed half the tracks on Whole Lotta Red already.
Really?
Yeah, well, I'm exaggerating, but there are songs on I Am Music that have more streams than some of the deep cuts off that album.
He somehow created a bigger cult following since The Delay, which is the and we're going to talk about it, which is the opposite, I think, of A$AP Rocky, where The Delay is so sad. We're going to get into it, so sad. But it's annoying. But when you see that this album is going to be 30 songs long, what does the percentage hit rate have to be for you to walk away from the album to be like, good album?
70%.
Okay, that's way higher than mine.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily a Carti fan. If I walked away, which I did, with 5+ songs, and I'm like, I enjoyed that a lot, I was like, good Carti album.
Well, as an album, like, if only 5 songs were good, I would still be, like, geeked about it.
Yeah.
But, like, in terms of, like, an actual... Because I think there's... Nowadays, like, an album doesn't have to be good to be good. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really mean anything anymore.
I mean, dude, 30 songs... Like, I'm very anti that. It's like by track 20 to 30 could be the best songs of the album, but I start losing interest by 20 to 30, where I'm like, I really like tracks 4 till 9.
Yeah, there's peaks and valleys with that album. There's a couple runs that are terrible. Like, honestly.
The run of Rather Live, Fine Shit, Backdoor, Toxic to me is crazy.
I hated that.
Really?
That's like the worst part of the album for me.
Really? This is my favorite. But I'm also like a fake Carti fan where melodic Carti is like what gets me going. So that's what hit for me. But like as a Carti fan, what's like the...
Like the last 6 songs are really good. Maybe the last like 6 to 8 are really good. And the ones with Future were really good. The ones with Uzi are some of the worst songs I've ever heard in my life. Like really bad. How
do you feel when he does his Future voice? Which on Toxic, I thought he was featured on it because it was just literally a Future voice.
No, like my fiance couldn't tell.
I couldn't.
She had no idea. She's like, "Who's rapping right now?" And I'm listening for a second. I'm like, "I think it's Carti."
Yeah.
But he kind of sounds like Future with something up his nose.
I could tell after I checked that it was who's featured, and I saw it wasn't Future. But like listening to the first time, I'm like, "Okay, cool, Future chorus." Yeah. Like, let's get it.
No, I love it. I mean, that's if he did only the baby voice, I probably wouldn't have listened to the album till the end. The deep voice is like where it's at.
It's grown on me. I'll say like, what's the fucking, I got it in front of me. Evil Jordan. Like at first when I listened to it, didn't love it. Now I hear the beat and I'm like, crazy.
No, it's really good. I mean, I think that was the best part. Anything where he's doing the deep voice is what I enjoyed.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And then, but he did do like the kind of the metal voice, a couple songs where it's like, he's like gargling shit. It's like, that wasn't good. But the deep voice is really...
He tries out some stuff. I'm always like the fan of like Shooters or like his more melodic tracks.
Those are those are easy to listen to.
I'm also a Weeknd hater.
What?
I do not like the Weeknd
at all.
At all, but I like that song.
You don't like After Hours? Trilogy?
My best friend, college friend, is a stan. Like huge. He'll send me every song. It doesn't hit. His voice is too clean for me. It's nothing too negative. It's just like too poppy for me. Where I'm like, it's a little too H&M-y.
No.
For me.
Trilogy?
But when a good song's good, like he killed that chorus.
Dude, Trilogy was so good.
I need to.
Kissland? You got to listen to Kissland because that's like the dark album. The actual dark album. Because After Hours is dark.
Yeah.
Kissland is like he said he was like only watching like John Carpenter movies and like all fucked up shit while he was making it. Like it's musically it's his most interesting too. But
I'm always a sucker for like a raspy voice. So that's like an Anderson .Paak.
yeah.
I would listen to way faster than a Weeknd album.
Well, I don't like smooth voices either, honestly. The more texture in the vocals, the
Yeah.
better. But The Weeknd is like, well, he gets a pass because he's the best.
That's
But other
fair.
than that, I'm not into R&B as much unless it's more alternative R&B.
Even rappers, I like the quote unquote like bad singing that is good. It's funny. The last time you were on the podcast, did you get more into Mac Miller since this last conversation we had?
Probably.
Because I've always enjoyed Mac singing. 'Cause it's not necessarily like great singing, but
Yeah.
it hits for me.
Well, I agree that like it's such a false dichotomy that someone has to be good at singing to sing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good singing that no one cares about or talks about. Like Ariana Grande. I don't give a shit. Like no, like seriously, like it's just not what. Like
Yeah.
okay, she's great, but is the song good? You know, but then lately I've been really addicted to Testing from A$AP Rocky because it's basically like an alt pop album. Half
Yeah.
the songs are like this weird alt pop where he sings and has his
Yeah.
pop beats, and it's like okay, this is like he can't really sing, but he does a great job.
Yeah.
And works. I mean, I agree with you that it's texture is better.
Yeah. Like Cole has that. I think so. Tyler always found workarounds for the singing with like the pitching his voice different ways. That being said, this new album, which I did not like, I think he tried to sing too much. I think he fell in love with how his singing voice sounds with like the different things he does with the plugins. But like, it works sometimes. Like the album right behind me, right here. Like,
Yeah.
I thought you wanted to dance. Like it works. Chromacopia didn't
I think
love it.
this is my favorite album he's ever made.
I wouldn't argue it.
I would say I appreciate Igor or Igor. How do you say it?
I think Igor.
Igor. Okay, that makes more sense. I appreciate Igor, but this is like just fun. Like
Yeah.
it's just good. Like you just
It's great rapping.
Yeah.
And this came out, we got Flower Boy right here. That's always going to be my favorite because it just came out at a time where I think my music taste was changing to more jazzier stuff. I mean, it's like when I like listened to Pimp a Butterfly again, I'm like, wait, this is, because I was like 14 when it came out. So I was like, what the fuck is this? Then I re-listened when I got older. I'm like, oh, this is like an amazing album. So I think this is when I'm like, oh, this is like one of the best artists I've ever heard.
It was really influential.
So I
Flower
think,
Boy was like that lasted forever too. People were just listening to Flower Boy for years
Oh my
and years and like
So
never got over it.
he had that skill set of being like, I can write a bridge, but let me put Rex Orange County on it, which I think Chromacopia, he was like, let me do the singing. And I'm like, I don't need that.
I found it kind of forgettable, to be honest.
There's no, and I love him. I had no intention. I went into it being like, let this be my favorite Tyler album ever. There's no song I still play on it.
I'm curious what his next thing will be, because I feel like well, Flower Boy and Igor was a combo that was like insane.
Well, he was on the every 2-year drop cycle until well, I guess he dropped the deluxe of Call Me If You Get Lost. If that like keeps
Doesn't
up the
count,
cycle,
yeah.
it doesn't count. Yeah,
I
this,
think-
this shit was great.
That was good, but this is more. It's not that experimental from like because Flower Boy and Igor change everything,
Yeah, I
And
think
then-
it's a mixture of like West Side Gun with synths.
which is really good. And in a way, it's experimental, but it wasn't experimental in the way that like the mainstream type audience will be like,
Yeah.
shocked by it.
Well, Igor wasn't even like a rap album, even though one rap
Yeah.
album of the year. He's like, it was a pop album.
It was, yeah. And I think I'm curious, just because Chromacopia fell even further away from the experimental side. I mean, I don't know. I didn't listen to it that many times, but like, I'm curious, is he going to be kind of just relegated to the legacy act because like he can't top Flower Boy and Igor, or does he come back with something really insane? I don't know.
I mean, dude, he's doing arenas, which I think is so impressive because if I play his music around my friends who like music, they don't like, he's not a major artist, but he is a major artist because his
Yeah, yeah.
niche fan base is so big that I'm like, I can't believe he's doing Wells Fargo Center, which is like
Yeah.
the Sixers stadium, but he is that big somehow. I mean, good for him. He's
Yeah.
created this like whole thing, and like he's similar to Rocky. I can see why they became friends after their
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I can't pronounce that word.
Yeah.
Their bad start because they had like whatever beef with them, and Rocky has kind of just accepted. Him and Rihanna both are like, we're not really making music that much anymore. Rocky's dealt with his whole like court case and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's your don't be dumb excitement level?
Oh, it's like
These days.
Dude, it's like up here.
It's up there, really?
No, it's really. I think it's gonna be like one of the greatest albums that
Really?
like. Well, it'll probably be his best, in my opinion. Second best because you can't top Long Last A$AP.
Do you think that those singles will still be on the album, or do you think he just scratches those? Because there were so many out.
He's gonna have like 2 of them on there, maybe I think.
That's My Bitch was good. DMB.
Yeah. DMB is really good. Hijack is one of my favorite songs he ever did.
I didn't remember that one now.
It's the one that has Jessica Pratt.
Okay.
And it's like kind of folksy.
But there was one that he released where I was like, I'm surprised you went with a single for that one. It was not like
Is it Same Problems?
maybe Same Problems. I was
that
surprised.
Has, like Lil Yachty is singing on it, and it
Yeah.
has Thundercat playing bass. I don't know what he was thinking with that single. It's a really, really good song.
It's like a deep cut that you like. You like the fourth time you listen to it, you're like, wait, is this the best song I've ever heard?
Yeah. But I think it's going to be a lot of that, though. I read some interviews. He was talking about being inspired by like Memphis rap, 90s boom bap, and then he wanted it to be like indie rock and jazz also. And I think like in Hijack, it is indie rock. And same problem. Those are like indie rock. Like Thundercat he plays on all these like rock things, and like that's definitely, he's going all the way with it. Which is like, you can make a beat that samples something, or you can make these actual like songs that are half trap, half indie rock, which is not something that anyone has ever done well. But he does it in a way that's like almost not even noticeable.
That sounds not as like pushing anymore, because I feel like Lil Yachty dropped a whole album that was an attempt to do like Tame Impala album.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe if it was dropped 3 years ago, it'd be like more groundbreaking than like what it's gonna end up being.
No, I think it is going to be groundbreaking, because Lil Yachty's one didn't. It was good, but like someone needs to do it better, because it could someone could do it to a level that's like as big as Flower Boy.
Yeah.
And everyone becomes obsessed with that sound for years.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be different from like, I mean, even Flower Boy was kind of like indie DIY and hip hop a little bit. But I think it's going to be different from that, because when you listen to the songs, it's like a different level of cohesion between the two sounds, as opposed to just having some like little Telecaster sounding guitar and then trap drums under it. It's like, it's a different level of soundscape and atmosphere than that, I think.
But like even the video, you get into like who he's collaborating with. Like on the one album, it's like with Joe Fox. Like he finds people, which I think that makes me put faith in it not being like that. Where Tyler he doesn't find Steve Lacy, but he's like he's boys with Steve Lacy, and Kendrick. I'm watching like the To Pimp a Butterfly. Like he knew who to recruit, and it wasn't just like a big name necessarily. It was like the correct person. So I think Rocky seems to have that artistic tendency to pick the right person.
He has like executive producers on his albums too. Like Danger Mouse is a big one. That guy produced like one of Adele's albums. So when you like A$AP Rocky getting Adele's producer to come in, it's like that's gonna be a lot better than most of the trendy like indie rock rap stuff. So I just think it'll sound more full and mature and adult than a lot of the stuff that is more just kind of gimmicky.
I get mad just when an artist starts. It's not their fault necessarily, but when they start a rollout. Like he tweeted August. That was 2023 August. And it's more funny to look back at now. But like, don't roll it out till you have the date and it's done. Clearances through.
I'm sure they thought it was, but he kept having the issues with the court case. So.
Yeah. Like I read that Chance the Rapper, it was an article about his manager who he fired, that Chance announced the release date for the big day before he started making it. And like those types of things will like, now you're putting like an end date, which is like scary.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And like I help manage an artist, and he wanted to put out like a video. He's like, let's announce the release date. I'm like, you didn't even shoot the video yet. Like get the video done, then we can like get, because you're just gonna put pressure on yourself that's not needed.
Yeah. Plus, like, it's not that useful to be announcing something before it's too long.
Yeah.
Like, you know. Yeah. With Rocky, I think I heard. I forget who told me this, but I know a guy who was in the studio with him, and he was like bringing in saxophonists to find the best one. He had like 10 saxophonists.
That's crazy.
And he had them all stay like all night, like taking turns. I heard that story. I mean, I don't know how true it is, but there's probably some truth to just.
Yeah.
He's probably has been working. Like people are like, oh, he's retired. It's like he's probably been working on it a lot for a long time, from what I hear. So
I'm always curious what these artists do with their. I'm obviously they're just normal people, but like Frank Ocean, you are debatably one of the best singers of all time, songwriters. What do you like? You have this talent. Like I'm obviously being like a selfish fan, but like, come on, like LeBron James knows what he means to the NBA and is going until he's 45.
Yeah.
Tom Brady did not raise his kids and gets divorced, but he's like, I'm gonna go win rings. I know I'm the GOAT. And it's like, it's an interesting difference that he's like, I could be the greatest of all time. I'm just not gonna do it.
Well, maybe he could be, but maybe he couldn't be. Because what if he's tapped out? Like, if I don't know. I mean,
it's interesting to see someone in a genre that's so egotistical for someone to be so good and praised and not like, I guess Andre 3000 deals with the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, why not give it a try?
I think there's a level of like, once you're at the level where you can just keep doing it without having to think,
Yeah.
like most people will keep doing it without having to think because it's
Yeah.
easy. You make a shit ton of money. But I think there's some people who probably never expected it to begin with, and they're like, don't
That's
mind if
true.
it goes away. Like Frank Ocean was a writer,
Yeah.
and I'm sure he wanted to be famous, but it probably isn't. It's not how he started.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's like, not what he prefers.
I always appreciate an artist who like you can tell their love for the game. Where like J. Cole, it's like this guy loves rap music, and he's like a historian. And like Logic's always been like that. Where I'm not a big Logic fan anymore, but I'm like I always appreciated that. I'm like he loves this. In the same way KD talks about basketball, you're like this dude just loves ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I always appreciate those people that you're like they love this genre.
I like the Doncha type people who don't.
Who are just so naturally good at it, and they're
Yeah.
like it's whatever.
No, I mean, it's funny that, maybe Frank Ocean's that type of artist where it's like, he had a really good idea to make an album called Blonde and then had no more good ideas for other albums. I don't know.
It's a fair point. I mean, maybe it could be that. What an album! Oh my god, that was great.
It's sad that we don't know like more of the inner workings of how these guys are like making, what their process is and
Yeah.
stuff. Because it's just, I don't know. I wish that stuff, I'm sure, well, for some artists, like obviously Kanye, there's like infinite footage of him.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist for like Frank Ocean or.
I'm curious your opinion on this. When Drake released all of those like gigabytes of videos, I think that he was doing that with the intention of people on YouTube making documentaries for him. Because he's like, these are all these kids out here who make these videos. Like, let me just feed them the content instead of them having to dig for it.
But there was nothing good in there.
Did you feel at first the desire to make anything based on that content?
I looked at it and then I saw that there was nothing good in it.
Okay.
There was actually, I mean, that is possibly true, but there wasn't anything in there that was good. Yeah.
Now that we're getting to 1 year later, and we can take a step back, how do you kind of look at the war?
Well, actually, I need to be vindicated. I hope someone clips this. I said that Kendrick Lamar and Drake would be inextricably linked for like the rest of their recording careers. And people were like, that's not true at all. You have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like, yes, I do. This is going to happen. And it's been a year and neither of them could do anything. Kendrick can't even be on a Playboi Carti song without people talking about it. And people were like, oh, by next year, no one will care. It's like, no, people really care. I think, I mean, Kendrick won. Kendrick won. And like, it's gotten so much worse and worse and worse for Drake.
He's made every wrong move.
Yeah.
In terms of like the songs he chose to release and this lawsuit. It's just a lot of bad turns where I feel like J. Cole was like, oh, let me go make a podcast with Ebe and do a 10-year anniversary concert at MSG for 2014. And like, it got people on his side of his at least core fan base. And he's the biggest artist in the world, so he doesn't really have like that niche fan base the way that Cole does, like a Dreamville fan base. But he's made every seem wrong maneuver.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that, Drake actually kind of fumbled into giving Kendrick his moment.
Yes.
Like, because Kendrick's gotten so much bigger, and now he's on the Carti album, and he got even more discussion in the Super Bowl and everything else. And then his tour is going to be going on, and maybe he'll be previewing new music. Yeah. I mean, Drake has somehow he kicked Kendrick forward. I don't know.
He called himself a seasoned general on one of the songs, or war chief. And I thought what was he dropping? Like Tailor Made. I thought Drake was going to do what Kendrick did, which was right when Kendrick drops, I'm going to drop 30 minutes later. And I was surprised that Drake didn't have that tactic up his sleeve, that he like teased the video for Family Matters for a week. And I think that was also a misstep because Family Matters was great. But
it was really good. I like it, yeah.
It's a great diss track. It did not need like the video of the van. Like I think that was unnecessary timing-wise that let Kendrick drop Meet the Grams 30 minutes later.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, Family Matters is great. And I don't know if Meet the Grams looks as good because of the whole kid accusation, which seems to be not true.
Yeah.
So it's like
it could be.
It could be.
Drake probably has like 7 kids.
I wouldn't doubt that.
Yeah.
And there's been the whole conversation now is like Kendrick said he's the biggest hypocrite of 2015, like all those years ago, and does that like vindicate him of not getting not hate, but people talking like, you have interesting choices as a Kodak as the narrator of your album and featuring on Playboi Carti's album, then you're mad at Drake for being a deadbeat dad?
Yeah, well, it's like the thing about Drake is he hasn't done anything even half of what Kodak Black and Playboi Carti have done.
Yeah.
Those guys are like charged. Kodak is convicted. Like Drake's just maybe a little weird. Like it's not really, but it's
And it goes back to what we were saying before, that it's always good or bad, and there's no like middle ground. And like that's what Kendrick's always said, that like, I'm not your savior, I'm not this perfect person. But does that also like take you away from criticism for when you're featured on?
I mean, I'm sure he doesn't want to be. I'm sure he doesn't really even care about the criticism because he's probably just doing what he wants to do.
I mean, he's also so successful, so like, why would he focus?
Yeah,
He seems like someone who's in tune mentally with his soul.
my issue with the Cardi features is that he didn't sound that good.
Okay.
I just didn't find him entertaining.
Backdoor I thought was okay. I feel like he's been making a lot of Luther type songs.
Yeah, it sounded like Luther, like a throwaway version.
The one on SOS Deluxe was also like a Luther type song.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Luther though, so good.
It's really good. I heard it on the way here. Someone was bumping it in their car. Banger. But I think, with Kendrick Lamar. So this is a funny thing. I was on my stream, and I was doing a tier list for all those songs on IM Music. This like a couple days ago, and I got towards the end. Someone was like, "Love the stream, but like, what's your relationship with Sneeko?" Because a lot of people know that me and Sneeko grew up and came up together a little bit, to a degree, and they use that as like a thing on me. They'll be like, "Well, you know, why is he around?" And I'm like, I'm like, you're watching a stream about a guy who strangled his girlfriend, and we're all talking about how awesome his raps are.
Yeah.
Sneeko, what has he done?
I don't even I'm not even in tune with the streamers or like those people.
I mean, it's like, look, he says a lot of shit that a lot of people disagree with. I disagree with it. I disavow. Okay, I disavow for the recording. I disavow all that stuff. I don't agree with that. That's not how I live my life. That's not how I talk. Yeah. But it's like we're praising and glazing and deriding this dude who's a fucking criminal, and he beats women and doesn't talk to his son. And it's like, yeah, we can separate the artist from the artist for that. So why don't we're like the only reason why we're even talking about Kendrick being like hypocritical on Carti's album is because all of us listened to the album. So clearly we're okay with Carti.
Oh yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So I feel like when people
we're all hypocrites. I mean that's just human nature.
Yeah, I mean like, and then I was like, you guys are all watching the stream. Do you know what I do when the camera's off? Like, I could be the worst person ever. Yeah. Like, I could be fucking stealing the money that people send me for the fucking this and that and fucking people over. And it's like, you probably still watch it. I don't know. Like,
I think my issue, which I'm not going to stop listening to Kendrick. I love Kendrick Lamar. Mm-hmm. It's like when he's on Meet the Graham saying like, hey, LeBron, keep the family away. Steph Curry, keep the family away. And it's like, why are you trying to convince these people who are friends with Drake to not be friends with them anymore? And you're associating yourself with a worse person.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I think it just
comes off. I'm not sure. There's probably lack of a better word, dumb.
Yeah, I think to a degree, but it's also just like it's work, and like, him doing stuff with Carti is part of his year-long promo rollout for whatever he's doing right now.
It's working. It's working very well.
It's working.
You get on a song and you're like, hey, I don't know what's Drake's mom's name.
Sandy or
it's
something.
Like Sandy, like you raised a bad kid, and it's like that's wild.
Yeah. I mean, I think...
Great in the moment, like crazy diss. He said, Dear Adonis.
I mean, that was really good. When that came out, I was like, had a heart attack when that came out. I
was at a bar in New York City. We leave to listen to Family Matters in the street. Go back in. Go back out. We're all huddled around a phone. You're like, what did you do?
I was at a work dinner in New York, too.
What did you say?
Yeah. But I think it is like the work thing. Like, everyone has coworkers they don't like. And everyone has, you know what I mean? Like,
and it always goes back to the social media being like good or bad. And like, you guys have people in your life that disagree or have a bad take on something. You're not going to end a relationship.
Yeah. It is what it is. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't excuse bad stuff, but everyone else is already, everyone's listening to it.
Yeah. And then it goes back to fucking Kendrick saying like, I'm not your savior. And that was like his whole point of his album. And then that goes to the point of like, that doesn't excuse you from stuff. And it's like a whole circle of like hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And I think just not like humans are hypocrites. That's just what it is.
It's true, but I do think like everyone's saying like Kendrick's not your savior. It's like, all right, guys, we get. Put the fries in the bag. We're wearing the phrase out. The phrase is getting worn out already. It just doesn't matter. Is the song good? Is the song bad? I mean, I've learned a lot of life lessons from Kendrick's music.
Same. I mean, it's incredible.
Good Kid, Mad City was it taught me things I should have known or should have been taught by people that I never knew before. Does that make sense? Like,
that's why I thought about To Pimp a Butterfly. That I'm like, I'm learning about, which is why I love hip hop, which is you're learning about different stories and cultures and people, and that's why it's awesome.
Yeah.
I grew up in a suburb. It's a diverse suburb, but like it's a suburb of Philadelphia, and I only know my bubble of train of thought until you talk to a rapper from Chicago, you hear their experience, or you listen to a rapper from another country. It's expanded.
Yeah.
That's why we love hip hop. It's the best thing.
No, I mean, I love. I remember there was a summer that like my life was like Good Kid, Mad City.
Yeah.
And I listened to it, and it was because I didn't grow up in a suburb. It was kind of like it was a little bit wild, and I listened to it, and it was like, okay, maybe there's like a good ending to this discomfort and the stuff that I'm experiencing, and it gave me a good direction to go in, and it was really meaningful. I mean, but he doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, there's albums that naturally I relate to more, like a Mac Miller, Swimming. And then there's albums like this Tablecloth that is Freddie Gibbs. Can I relate to what Freddie Gibbs raps about? I do not, but it is interesting.
Well, supposedly, maybe he even doesn't relate to what he raps about, judging by what people
That
have
could be true.
Might be the Gary, Indiana stories might not be so true. That's not my business, though.
That's why they're the Martin Scorsese of rap. That's why Pusha T says that. I don't know what's true, but I like watching Scorsese movies, and I like listening to Pusha T.
Stories are stories, you know? Like, you know, it doesn't have to always be authentic, but whatever.
But bro, thank you for coming, being my first in-person In the Basement podcast. I need a better phrasing for that. In the Basement podcast. Where can people find you?
YouTube.com/Volksgeist.
Yes, sir.
That's the only one. I don't
Yeah.
I don't even have any other platforms.
Get him to 500,000 so he gets a sticker from YouTube.
Yeah. I need the sticker. I'm not getting it. Even an email. Maybe they'll send me a Chipotle card. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll take it. I'm Adam Dash. You can find me ADAMDASH_ on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, SoundCentric Music, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, newsletter, Monday. Sign up for it every Monday. Come in your inbox.
Is this real?
Yeah.
Oh, you set me up with that?
Yeah, I do a weekly newsletter. And what else we got coming? We got more interviews. They're gonna be fire.
Yeah, he's gonna interview me again. We're gonna be talking about my outfit.
Yeah,
It's 30 seconds long.
You got the quarter zip. You got a big head, but I also got a big head, so I relate to it. If you listened this long, I love you. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time.